Okay, well, we are at noon. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this Feast of Saints Scholastica Day panel, alumni panel. And we have four stellar alumni with us today. Most of you are already acquainted with this panel because you have seen the recorded session that was provided to you earlier in the semester. And I hope you had a chance to view that. If not, that's okay. You're here now, and our panelists are more than happy to take your questions. So the recorded session was me asking panelists questions. This is your chance to ask them your own questions. We've got lots of questions that have come in already, and I'm going to start things off by asking our panelists questions from this long list I've got here of questions sent in by you all. But please feel free at any point during this webinar to enter your questions, new questions, fresh questions, whatever they may be, comments, you name it, into the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And then I will try to fold those into the questions in our conversation as we go along. So I'll be monitoring that. There is Sister Kathleen Del Monte working hard behind the scenes, monitoring questions as well. So we'll try to capture as many as we can. And so again, I just want to welcome you all, welcome our panelists to this panel, which is again part of a larger celebration of the Feast of Saint Scholastica, which we're kicking off today. Of course, the feast day is tomorrow, and there are donuts if you're on campus. If you're local, there are donuts that are going to be distributed at 3 different locations. And on the campus, there's also going to be today at 4:30 a Mass in the Queen of Peace Chapel. So lots of good stuff. Okay, so let's get to our panel. Well, I thought it'd be good if we could start off with some introductions. And so what I'm going to ask is that the panelists begin with introducing themselves. And so I'm just going to go with the order that I see you on the screen here. And so can we start with Michael? Michael, can you just introduce yourself for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, everybody. My name is Michael Bauman. I graduated in 2020 with a music education degree. And I taught for a year in the public schools and decided, I found a different calling. So I decided to go back to school at St. Scholastica again, just because I liked it so much. And now I'm going for computer information systems, cybersecurity, and I'm loving what I'm doing. So.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael. Brianna.
Hello, good morning, or afternoon, I guess now. I am Brianna. I graduated in 2019 with a computer information systems degree with a concentration in software development, and now I am a software engineer at C.H. Robinson.
Thank you, Brianna. So again, following my screen here, can we go to Meghan?
Hello, my name is Meghan Braegelmann. I graduated from St. Scholastica in 2020 with a psychology degree, and I now work at St. Scholastica. I work in our admissions office, and I work with all incoming nursing students.
Great, thank you, Meghan. And Lindsey.
Hi, I'm Lindsey. I graduated in May of 2021 with a degree in exercise physiology and a minor in Spanish. And now I'm at grad school at the University of Minnesota studying a doctorate of physical therapy.
Great. And again, welcome all, and thank you for sharing your time and your perspectives with us here. So as I mentioned, we got some questions that have come in on the basis of the recorded session. And some of the questions are, well, they have to do with how did you manage your life, your time here at the college, right? Because we've got students who are watching this. They're in the thick of it. They want to know, how do I navigate through all this stuff like you did, and to do it successfully like you all did, okay? And so one of the questions that has come up in a number of different forms is simply, how did you manage your time? Like, how did you do it? How did you manage your time and also your stress? Does anyone want to start off with giving us some thoughts on that?
I could start it off. I mean, for managing my time, I will definitely suggest using some kind of planner or calendar. For me, just because I'm kind of techie, I used Google Calendar for all my stuff. So I put in due dates and all that kind of stuff, and that helped me stay organized. And then, well, managing my stress, that's a big one. I mean, wow. Well, you're definitely going to have many stressful situations in college, obviously, between, academics, financial stress, that kind of stuff. And so what I did, I probably just, I have to think about that one. I kind of took a deep breath and said, everything's going to be okay. I just have to get through this. And I definitely reached out to many people who I knew could help me, professors, staff at the college, for like they don't have one stop anymore, but financial aid, that kind of stuff, to find somebody who can help solve your problem with you. So that's my suggestions.
Thanks, Michael. So looking for people, like reaching out to people, that's definitely very helpful. Anyone else? How did you all manage your time and your stress?
For me, I feel like I came into college thinking that I would be the same as everyone else. And I feel like the college stigma is to like stay up late, cram, study, whatever, and kind of figuring out where you study best. So for me, like I am a morning person, so I need to get up at 5 a.m., study from 6 to 8 or whatever, then go to class. Because after like 8, my brain shuts off. And that's still true to this day in grad school. So I guess just getting to know yourself, finding where you study and where you're the most productive. And for stress, for me, like exercise is a big outlet. And like the intramurals, there's so many intramurals at Scholastica, and having the rec right there is huge. But so that was for me how to relieve some of my stress.
Lindsey, can I just follow up on that? Was it difficult for you to discover that about yourself? Was that something that you felt you brought with you to the college? Or did you feel like it took a few months to kind of figure out, I am a morning person, this is my routine? How did that play out for you, if I may ask?
It definitely took a while because none of my friends were, so they were all like up super late studying. I was like, well, this isn't really working for me. I feel like I'm not retaining anything that we're studying this late. So I think it was just a lot of trial and error. And obviously, when you fail your first exam, you're like, well, I got to try something new. So my first anatomy exam, failed that, and then kind of switched my mindset, and then I TA'd for anatomy. So even if you fail an exam, it's going to be okay.
Wow, that is definitely very comforting to hear. Thank you, Lindsey. Meghan or Brianna, any thoughts on time management, stress management?
I'd say, echoing Michael, definitely have a planner. I lived out of my planner, and now I live out of my Google Calendar. If it's not written down, I won't remember it. And then as far as stress management, everyone manages stress differently, but I do think it's very important to be intentional about setting time every day, whatever that looks like for you. If you meditate, if you exercise, if you hike, if you explore outside, or even if you're just hanging out with friends with no distractions, whatever that might look like for you, I think the more important part is getting that into your routine, and not feeling guilty about not doing homework or not doing things that you think you should be doing, because taking care of yourself and your stress management is equally, if not more important than doing your homework. So I think more of that mental shift to being okay with relaxing and doing things that relieve stress for you is the most important part. For me, it was just hanging out with friends, getting dinner, things like that, being more social.
It's really interesting, Meghan, how you put, I guess, personal wellness on a par with academic achievement. And like that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you're not really going to achieve much if you're crumbling inside, if you're falling apart. So I guess that's something to really keep in mind. Thank you so much, Meghan. Brianna, is there anything you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, my answer kind of echoes a lot of what's already been said, but I lived by my Google Calendar as well, and made sure I set aside time for hanging out with friends. I joined Crochet and Knit Club, which was a great way to relax, and I tried to spend a little bit of time every day crocheting just because it de-stressed me as something creative for me to do. And getting enough sleep. Make sure you go to bed.
Sleep, that is a tricky one, isn't it? That is so tough. Good for your physical and mental and emotional health. I'm really curious about the crocheting. So I think that's a wonderful hobby to get into, and I'm kind of thinking like, so we are all so busy at the college, especially students, and so I'm kind of curious. Did the other on the panel? Did you have hobbies as well? Or was that something that kind of just sort of fell away as you got into the thick of work and life at college?
Well, I was consumed with Dungeons and Dragons, so that's probably where I would say my relaxing time, de-stress time occurred. So
A D&D fan. Okay. Wow. That's great.
I feel like
But
just setting time for yourself in a routine. So like for me and my friends, it was like every Monday night we'd get together and watch The Bachelor, which was just like that was my thing. Monday night, like 2 hours of just on this drama, and that would kind of relieve some of my stress. But making sure you have time for yourself too, and kind of understand if you're an introvert and extrovert, how you release that energy is just really important. So you can opt.
that's great. That's really great. And I just to point out here, we have just one technical issue. Brianna, there seems to be a little bit of feedback. Is it possible if you had do you have a headset available that could put on? If not, that's fine.
Yep.
Okay. We can work through technical issues. So just wanted to throw that out there. I want to ask you all so many questions. Like I want to ask you just one more question for me, is following up on what you all said. So we talked about crocheting, D&D, watching The Bachelor, and Meghan. At any point you want to jump in and add something, please by all means do so. But I'm kind of curious about the actual exercise, because most of you mentioned some form of exercise. What did exercise look like for you? Are we talking about going to the gym and doing squats, or are we talking just going for a walk? Can you just give us an idea, just like what did exercise look for you all?
For me, I loved the lake walk down in Duluth. That was a tradition, even if the weather was horrible. Me and my friends would always walk down there and just walk it from Canal Park all the way to the other end. And that was just a beautiful way to get outside, or just going to the rec and lifting. They have a ton of like classes. I think I started yoga actually in college, and I still do that to this day, which is really fun. I'm one of like the free classes that they had, but yeah.
well, for me, there are a bunch of acres and acres of land behind Scholastica, and so what I love to just go back there, relax, enjoy the nature around me, and just quiet time. Yeah, that was my relaxation or exercise time.
I'd echo that too. I think my friends and I would usually hike to hammock. So just finding different trails in town where we could walk, and then we'd hammock and hang out for a little bit. So anytime outside, and it really depends on the day. You might not have an hour every day to go to the BWC and do a full workout. So just kind of changing your idea of overall exercise, even if it's a 15-minute walk on the trails behind campus, you're still moving your body. So for sure.
I mean, that's one of the great things about the campus and just living in Duluth, is that we've got such an incredible environment in which to move around and have fun. We got Chester Creek, which is really close by, and the trail system. And it's in the winter, it's got the downhill skiing and also cross country skiing. It's just really great. Brianna, we were just talking about the different kinds of exercise that well, you all do or did when you were on campus. And I know you were working away on your technical on getting that headset. So do you have any, do you want to chime in on this conversation of exercise and just kind of recreation?
Yeah, I really loved the trails behind Scholastica. My boyfriend at the time, we would walk right there, and my husband now, we got engaged back on the trails behind Scholastica. So that was a place for me.
How very romantic. That's really great. And that's really wonderful. Again, I get so many questions for you, but it's not about me asking you questions this time. It's about our viewers. And so another question here about your time at CSS has to do with your experience at Dignitas and with the Dignitas program. We have a lot of Dignitas students who are watching right now. And the question is, what kind of impact did that program, did Dignitas have on you? And can you put words to that experience and maybe how it has contributed to you even up to this very day, if you can speak to that? So really, what was the impact that the Dignitas program made to you?
I can start. I took Professor Randall Poole's Dignitas class, and when I took it, it was just simply titled God or Not. So as this 18-year-old going into college, I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. And then background, I grew up in a very Catholic household. So growing up, I was Catholic, all those beliefs. And when I was in Dignitas, that was kind of the first time for me that those beliefs were ever challenged. And I was forced to kind of think maybe a little bit differently. So for me, my specific Dignitas class kind of made me a more spiritual person and kind of just have a wider lens view on religion and faith and science and kind of how that goes together. And then I also, I was the lead Dignitas MTA when I was a student. So I worked with all of the faculty, and then I was also a classroom Dig TA. So I was pretty involved in the Dignitas program, and through that experience, gained some professional skills, leadership, organization, things like that. So definitely owe a lot to Dignitas for where it has brought me to today.
Wow, so it sounds like there is some kind of like mental paradigm shifts going on, but also some practical skills that you picked up. That's great. Wow, thank you, Meghan.
Well, for my Dignitas class, I had Star Wars and Servant Leadership with Joelle McGovern. So I loved that class. I absolutely loved it. So it taught me many skills, including how to work in a team. We had to do like group projects and things like that. Present in front of a group. The Benedictine values were ingrained in me. I like to say that whenever I talk about the Dignitas class. And then part of our class, we got to go to the wellness, or not the wellness center, the BHC, the health, and we got to basically volunteer our time with the elderly folks over there, which was really cool to see. We played bingo, we did a bunch of activities with them. And it was just a fantastic time. And all the while we learned about how we have to be servant leaders first before we can, lead in general. You have to be a servant leader. So yeah, I thought it was very enjoyable.
A course on Star Wars, that does sound ideal to me, but. Any other thoughts, Brianna or Lindsey?
Yeah. For me, I transferred as a sophomore, so I actually didn't take Dignitas. So
okay.
I don't have much input. Sorry.
All right, no problem. Yeah.
My Dignitas class was Finding Your Meaning and Purpose with Gary Bohauer. And it kind of just opened my eyes to how your purpose isn't just your job, it's how you are in your community and your family. And maybe your big purpose is being a mom. That's kind of what I took away from the class. And my job was just going to be how I provide for my family. I do love my job, so that really helps. But just your career isn't who you are.
Wow. So it's kind of setting the big picture right from the very beginning. That is fantastic. And those are all amazing faculty who you mentioned. And which leads me to another question, and that is, during your time here, did you form meaningful relationships with your faculty? Like, were those important relationships? And are there any that you would want to highlight?
One I would like to highlight is Jessica Ellingson in campus ministry. I got the privilege to work with her as a peer minister, but she became a really good friend to me. yeah, she just really inspires me to be better, and she really helped me grow in my faith. So I had the chance earlier this year to visit campus, and I spent like 2 hours in her office just catching up, and it was awesome. It just filled me up so much.
That is great. Wow, that's fantastic. Any other meaningful relationships with faculty or staff?
I feel like I'd have to give a shout out to Mary Meyer. I think she's on here. Wow, she is just the light of the admissions department. And the amount of times I have cried in her office is probably way too many times, but she's just the most uplifting spirit. And yeah, I would say she really helped me make it through my 3 years at St. Scholastica. And I do not know where I'd be without her positive energy. And yeah, she's truly an inspiration.
That is great. Yeah.
So I have the awesome privilege that I have a couple family members who work at Scholastica. So highlighting my dad, John Bauman, and then my uncle, David Bauman, is always pretty cool. I would also like to mention Devo, or David Vosen, in the CIS department. He was really the person who got me interested in cybersecurity. So after I graduated in 2020, and I knew I wanted to go back, but I didn't really know in what kind of field in technology. So he and I had I don't know, it must have been like a 2-hour long conversation about what are the possibilities, and then skills tests and all that kind of stuff. So I would really like to highlight David, or Devo, for getting me interested in cybersecurity.
That is great. I know that personally, David has gotten me interested in the bagpipes.
Yeah.
He learned to play the bagpipes fairly recently, and it's just incredible, and quite way to go. What a piper.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Oh, that's great.
And then I think I would have to give a shout out to Kelly Mullen. When I was the lead Dignitas MTA, I worked really closely with her because she's the director. So we had multiple weekly, bi-weekly check-ins, and it was always the first half of our meeting was just, how are you? And then really like, no, really, how are you? And just the advice she gave me on a personal level and on a professional level. I learned a lot from her just as a student and as one of her lead TAs. So wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human being.
Wonderful. That is great. These are fantastic testimonies. And I'm kind of curious, when it came to forming these kinds of relationships, how would you encourage students to do so? Like maybe to some students, their professors might seem unapproachable, or they may feel like they can't really speak to staff. Was it Lindsey, you were talking about Mary Myers? And so any advice for how to maybe broach that kind of relationship and to sort of interact more with faculty and with staff?
I'd say as a staff member at St. Scholastica, we are here for you. Like that students are what give me joy and fulfillment in my own personal role at St. Scholastica. And then as a student, I would say just go to office hours. Faculty want to get to know you. They want to help you. They want you to succeed. Say hi to them in the hallway. Yes, they recognize you. Yes, they remember you, things like that. So just be personal with them, and they will likely be personal with you, and you'll be able to grow that relationship.
Yes, we get so lonely in our offices during our office hours. So I'd love to see you. Thank you, Meghan. Yeah.
I can echo the office hours 100%. That was so important and still is important to this day. Just go and build those connections. You never know when you're going to need a letter of recommendation or just like a good reference. Yeah, I will say just go to office hours. Even if you're walking past and you have 5 minutes, just like stop in and say, do you have 5 minutes to chat? It's super easy.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
I
Brianna.
would say also, if you get to class early, like chat with your professor. It's like a great few minutes to ask questions about the material if you have them, or just ask them how their day's going. And it's a great way to build that relationship.
Yeah, and then for me, as I was a freshman going through the music ed department, it was very scary to me because professors and faculty, staff, I thought they might have been a little intimidating at times, just because they're a fountain of knowledge, and then it just scares me. That's in a good way, in a good way. But what I would say is be the first contact, be the first one to reach out. I know it might be scary as a student, but for me, that has helped me considerably when I went and talked with professors and faculty and any staff members. I was always the one, hey, can we talk? I want to get to know you a little bit more, that kind of stuff. So yeah.
This is great advice. The only thing I would add from the faculty perspective is that if you're on a team, or you're in the theater or in band, you've got some game, tournament, performance coming up, let your professors know, and say, just like sort of personal heads up and even invitation. So that's always really great. Awesome, thank you so much. Again, so much good stuff. This question is a little different. If it's a question that we got from a student. So far you've been painting a rather, happy, positive picture of your time at CSS, albeit, full of stress and, which needed to be managed. The question asks, was there ever a point within your time at CSS where you felt like this may not be the right place for you, and you were thinking of transitioning out? Did any of you go through a period like that? And if you did, could you maybe say just a little bit about that?
I kind of went through that at my first college, because obviously I did transfer to Scholastica. So my first university, a lot of things happened. They ended up dropping my program. So it was kind of a crazy, either change your major or leave. And so I ended up leaving. But I feel like when I got to Scholastica, I thought that it was going to be like immediately perfect. And like, yep, I transferred, like, ooh, all better. And it was to an extent, but there are also definitely difficulties that came with that decision, like going to Scholastica, where Scholastica has a physical therapy school, and I didn't want to stay at that physical therapy school, which is totally fine. And I felt like when I started kind of having the idea that I didn't want to stay at Scholastica for the next 3 years of my life, that I wanted to go to a different school, there was help, but there was a lot less help because the prerequisites for different schools are just so different. And I was like, oh no, did I make the bad decision? But all in all, I've still made it, graduated, and it all worked out in the end. But it's definitely not always a perfect like yellow brick road through college.
Indeed. Thank you, Lindsey. Thanks for sharing that that experience.
For me, when I first toured, I went with a friend who was going to be a nurse. So Scholastica, nursing school, makes sense. And I just fell in love with it. It just felt right, but it's like a health school is like the main thing. And I was going to do computers when they had a program for me, but maybe there were better schools for that. But I truly believe that St. Scholastica is where I should have been, because I just came out a better person, more well-rounded. And like I said, when I was talking about Dignitas, just your job isn't everything. There's so much more to you. And Scholastica just helps you build that.
That's great. Thank you, Brianna.
I like to joke with people that because my dad works here and my uncle works here, that I didn't really have a choice in where I went to college. But I did consider going to other schools, but the problem is that when I first came in, I didn't know what I was going into. I basically went into accounting and finance is the first major that I started in, and I was low key undecided at that point, and until I really got in, started meeting the people, starting to learn what I personally liked, and so I kind of gravitated towards those kinds of things. I'll be honest, I didn't really think about other colleges that I could have gone to once I was in the music education department. However, I definitely remember thinking, you know, is this the right major for me? That kind of area of thinking. My recommendation for that type of thinking is probably do what you love and love what you do. So, I mean, I said that during the first panel discussion, but it really makes sense when you're thinking about, you know, what college to go to and what department to go, or what degree to go towards. Is love what you do, or do what you love and love what you do, and that's probably the best recommendation I can give.
Wow, I want to come back to that in just a minute, okay? But yeah, any other thoughts on this?
I never went through that type of experience personally when I was a student at St. Scholastica, but I think professionally as an admissions counselor, I'm working with students making their college decision every day. And I even tell them, like, yes, I wholeheartedly believe St. Scholastica is a great place, but it might not be the right place for every single student. So you have that calling. It should feel like home. It should feel like your community. You should feel supported. Your education is an investment. So if you feel like you're not getting the best out of your investment, there could be other places out there for you. I love St. Scholastica. It doesn't mean that you have to. So if you are struggling and if you're not feeling that community type atmosphere, I think it's totally okay. Lindsey transferred. It's very normal to transfer to different schools, but you deserve to feel that love, that support, and feel wrapped in a community. And if St. Scholastica is not that place for you, that's totally okay.
Wow, thank you, Meghan. Thanks for bringing your perspective, working in your department where you're working right now as a staff member here at the college. You know, I think we emphasize community so much here that I can understand some students maybe feeling, well, if they're discerning a transition, maybe that's a kind of betrayal. And from what I hear, you're saying is no, it's all part of that business of self-discovery that we were talking about before. And that what a real community does is that it helps you to become the person you're supposed to be. And that's what we're all here for. And people like you, Meghan, now, you know, working in the staff, are there for. So that is really, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, so I want to get back to what Michael was talking about. How'd you put it, Michael? Do what you love and love what you do, I think. Is that right? Okay, good. I can remember this when I was in college, people talking about following your passion. I remember passion was the word that's used. And I always found it rather frustrating because I had no idea. I had passions, but they didn't, I don't know, I didn't see how they could become lucrative in any way. And so I'm just really curious, like, and this relates to some of the questions that we've been getting. How do you have any practical tips on how somebody can find those passions or those loves that could then become, that they could capitalize on and could become eventually career choices or vocation choices, right? Going back to Brianna's point earlier. Yeah, so any kind of practical advice on how students can identify those loves?
I would say definitely visit the
remember
career.
back to
Oh, go ahead, Brianna. You're fine.
Okay, I was gonna say, remember back to Dignitas, one thing we talked about and thought about was what we like to do when we were little kids, like what toys we like to play with the most, because that can sometimes point you to what your heart desires to do day in and day out. So like I played with baby dolls and I'd wanted to be a mom, and that's like one of my biggest joys is being a mom. Maybe you played teacher all the time and that's points you to being a teacher. Maybe you wanted to take everything apart and see if you could put it back together. Like that, those things can be a huge hints to what you love to do.
That's really interesting advice, Brianna. Thank you. I wonder, I think I should have become some like alien fighting astronaut. So no, I'm just being silly. No, thank you so much for that.
Well, I don't know, Kevin, with Dungeons and Dragons, that still might be possible. But what I would say is definitely, so this happened in my Dignitas class as well as also in the Career Center. So I was given a kind of like a test, a little quiz, and they kind of revealed my areas of strength, right? And I think we talked about this during the last panel discussion as well, is if you don't know what you love, that's always the question, right? If you don't know what you love, what your passions are, experiment, right? Try and find it out. Take quizzes, take tests to reveal where your strengths are at, and maybe go down that road. And if that road doesn't work out, then find another passion of yours and pursue it. That's probably my recommendation. Yeah.
Yes, and sometimes just making a change can be enough.
Yep.
You know, like just I'm gonna try something different. You know, like even practically, like my paper didn't work out last time. I'm gonna try something different with my study habits. I'm gonna try to wake up early at 5 o'clock in the morning or something like that, right? But sort of like a larger picture, yeah, definitely. I can really see. Wow, this is great advice. I'm gonna write this down. This is excellent.
I think for me, the two practical things that I took advantage of was work study positions. So I had a handful of different work study jobs on campus, and that kind of gave me a glimpse at what different professional jobs could look like. And then also an internship. So many majors have internships as either a requirement or an elective part of them. And I did my psychology internship in the admissions office, and hint, hint, I'm an admissions counselor. So you find kind of those passions, your purpose through either, and I had a work study job in the admissions office too. So you kind of get a good idea of what your skills are, what your strengths are. Hopefully they match those quizzes that Michael was talking about. And then that kind of leads you down a direction of potential career path too.
That's great. That is great. Any other thoughts on this, following your passion, finding your loves?
I feel like I can echo everything everyone said. I went to the career services office. I took a test and it told me you should be a PT. So I was like, okay, great. That's my plan. And then I did a study abroad, a really short study abroad because of COVID, outside of the school, but they still supported me in that endeavor. And that was physical therapy internship. And I was like, yeah, that's great. And yeah, work study was awesome. I worked in the admissions department too. It was so fun. I love talking to people. I'm so extroverted. And as a PT, every single day, that's my job, is to talk to people. So yeah.
That is really great. The actually, so I've got a question for the whole group, but Lindsey, I have a specific question for you. This is a question that has just come in, and it has to do with your role as a PT. I mean, I'm assuming this is actually directed to you. Okay, you're the one with a Spanish major, and so the question is, how has the cultural fluency you gained through getting a Spanish minor helped you to connect with patients, colleagues, and community? Since you were just talking about speaking with people.
Yeah, so for me, I was hoping to get a major, and then with COVID, my study abroad was not able to happen. So just got a minor, but that's okay. I will say I did most of my Spanish classes at my first college that I went to. And then when I transferred in, I only had a couple of classes left to finish out that minor, but definitely understanding how every culture is different. So during my internship in Costa Rica, their format of a healthcare clinic is just so wildly different. Like they start the clinic at 10 a.m., go to 2, and they take like 2 hours of a lunch break and then go back. They're just so much more relaxed, and it's just very different from the high-paced environment that we have in the hospitals today, where it's like you see a patient every 30 minutes, you're in and out. So just understanding that you may need to build deeper connections with people of different cultures, because they come with, needing more understanding or needing more education and all of that, and just really meeting the patients where they are on the level that they are. And we always talk about patient-friendly jargon, which is so important, because you could be saying a million things that they might not understand, because like I could use medical terminology versus patient-friendly language. And yeah, so definitely getting into that community and seeing firsthand what it looks like was super, super helpful.
I can imagine that that was invaluable experience, especially in your line of work. I'm just kind of curious to open this up to the rest of the panel. Did you feel that you gained in cultural fluency with your time at CSS? And if so, has that been helpful in any way? This was not, I know this is kind of a left field, but cultural fluency is something that we talk about at the college. It's an important thing. It's not something that I think you don't only experience it in studying a foreign language, although that is an incredible way to experience it. And wow, talk about developing a practical skill while also expanding your horizons all at the same time. Foreign language study, it's amazing. But there are other courses too, get into this. And so I'm just kind of curious, was cultural fluency something that you feel that you gained at CSS?
If I could put one more plug in, that would be great. So I was a McNair Scholar during undergrad, and that's an amazing program for students who are like underrepresented, low income, first generation. And I feel like that was another program. If you fit into those categories, especially as a freshman, or I can't remember if I applied or I was a transfer, so it's different. But as a freshman, you apply, and if you get in that program, you're interested in any form of research, getting a PhD or even just a master's program, they can connect you with so many amazing opportunities. But they're definitely for students who are underrepresented, and connecting with them every single day just really helps you understand how everyone comes from such a different background.
Thank you for that, Lindsey. Thank you. That's awesome.
I think of music as the universal language, right? So I would probably say that I gained a lot of cultural knowledge, cultural music. I listened to a bunch of, I studied it. I definitely say that I learned cultural fluency through the study of music.
Michael, I'm going to put you on the spot. What do you listen to right now?
Right now, well, I'd probably say a little bit of Mike Bublé, but I'm a Mike Bublé fan.
Nice.
Otherwise, I like just African sounds is always pretty cool, especially if I'm trying to relax or something. I don't know, something kind of cool.
Wow. Shout out to music and to language. That is really cool. And I know this is kind of coming out of left field, this question, but just out of curiosity, Brianna, Meghan, is there anything you would like to contribute to this idea of cultural fluency? Did you feel like you gained it at CSS?
I think definitely. I would say with gen ed requirements, take some of those classes that sound maybe a little more intimidating. Like I had taken Literature of Social Change with Tom Morgan. I don't think he's at Scholastica anymore, but that class was transformative. Healthcare Across Cultures was a class I took that I really liked. Women in Religion, even just seeing how women specifically across different world religions, like there are so many classes out there. Kind of just be intentional and be mindful when you have to take gen ed classes anyway. Just try to get that aspect in your education in addition to whatever your major may be.
As a TRS.
That was my experience as well.
Oh, thank you.
I was just gonna, sorry.
I think there's some overlap that we're delay that we're dealing with here. So sorry, Brianna, I don't want to talk over you.
I was just gonna echo what Meghan said, that was my experience too. Just those gen ed classes you had to take, just maybe it's what just fits in your schedule, but it really ends up opening your eyes to a different way of thinking or a different culture. I took Native American literature, and that was very interesting to learn about.
Thank you to Brianna and to Meghan for mentioning the general ed courses as a TRS faculty member. I'm grateful that you mentioned that. And also Lindsey, I think, did you mention that you practice yoga at CSS?
Oh yeah, a little bit. I was trying different fitness classes, but
that's really great. Well, the reason I say that, because you may not know, but we now have a course on yoga and mindfulness. And so it's a gen ed course from the TRS department. And yes, I'm plugging it. But it's perfectly relevant. Yeah, lots of really interesting programs and things that we can do. Okay. there's again more questions that we have to get to. The so this is a question here regarding the study abroad trips and these kinds of things. And so the question is, so we've already heard about study abroad in Costa Rica, and so the question is, did any of the other panelists participate in the study abroad trip or alternative spring breaks? And if so, did that influence you as a person? And would you recommend it to other students?
I didn't do a full semester abroad, but I did do most of the alternative break experiences through campus ministry. And I would 100% recommend it. It's really fun, just one, to get away, but also to do some service. If it's a full study abroad, it's fun to tie that to your major. I actually graduated in 3 years instead of 4, and I regret not taking that extra year either to double major or study abroad, or just I should have taken advantage of being in college for longer instead of just racing out to work the rest of my life. So I would fully recommend studying abroad. Any trip you can do, definitely would recommend.
I can kind of echo Megan's statement there. I also didn't go on any spring trips or anything like that, but I really wish I did. I think it just broadens your eyes on the different possibilities, different teaching styles. You get out of Duluth, you maybe experience a new location. Ireland in the spring is always a really popular one. And I have many friends who have gone on trips like that, and they always come back like smiles on their faces. They love every minute of it. So highly recommended.
Yeah, the Ireland trip. That's one not to miss, I think. Yeah. And there are others.
I did not go on any trips either, but if travel is interesting to you, I would fully recommend it. I know a lot of people who really loved their study abroad experiences.
Well, so I'm going to just open this question up a little bit more. So we've been talking about study abroad, I'm talking about alternative spring break experiences. What about more stuff that's outside of the academic work, like extracurricular activities, for example? We have a question here about just that. And so things like sports, clubs, student groups, intramurals, whatever. Were these things that you engaged in? And if so, were they important to you in your formation as a person, do you think?
I feel like I wasn't involved in a ton of clubs because I kind of did more like working as a TA, that kind of thing. But I did start a club. So for the XFiz program, there wasn't an XFiz like student club, which I thought was weird. And so I ended up just making one. I hope it's still in the running. I don't know. But with that, we actually got to partner with the Special Olympics of Minnesota, the powerlifting team, which is just an awesome experience. Dr. Joe Warpea helped us make that connection, who is an ex-phys professor, who was awesome. But so that was just really fun to be able to get out into the community and reach a different population, especially with anyone interested in healthcare or even just connecting with other people. Reaching that population was super awesome.
Wow, Lindsey, that's amazing. So if there isn't a club you want to join, well, form your own.
It was really hard, but I figured it out somehow. Like this last semester, I think I was it for a year. So like kind of the last year, I was like, well, I'll try this out. Hopefully it's still running. I don't know.
That's great. That's fantastic. Yeah. Any other extracurricular experiences and impact on you?
I would definitely say, well, first of all, get involved. Like, I think it's one of the suggested things to do when you first come into college as a freshman is join at least 3 clubs, right? So that's where your friend group is. That's where your lifelong relationships are. That's where you really enjoy everything outside of maybe academics. I got involved in, nerd night. I got involved in the Student Government Association, where we accept or decline those created clubs. I mean, yeah, I was just get involved. That's yeah.
I'd echo that too. I kind of fell into that trap where I went to the student activities fair and I signed up for like 50 clubs, way too many. That was overwhelming. And I would go to the first meeting, have the free pizza, get the emails all semester, but never go or never do anything else. And I really regret it. I also worked quite a bit. I had a lot of jobs when I was a student. And I regret doing jobs instead of club activities. So echoing what everyone else has said, just definitely get involved, go to those meetings, go to those events, go to sporting events. We have so many student athletes, and a lot of their games, it's only parents or few people in the student section. So definitely just get involved. You'll meet new people, kind of expand your social circle, and it would be a great thing.
Just to follow up with that, Meghan, and this is for everyone, do you feel like you got a lot of emails?
Student community is a blessing and a curse. Yes.
that would be, I think, a question to just ponder for a while. Like, how do you just, we talk about managing time and stress. How do you manage email? Like that's an issue for me as a faculty member, but I can only imagine students. Like, wow. Okay. Sorry, that was just an aside. I just wanted to ask.
I'd probably just say wait
I
for the
was
workforce.
really involved.
Go ahead, Brianna.
Yeah, I'll agree with wait for the workforce. How many emails you get there is crazy. I was really involved in campus ministry. There's like a few different groups that I was a part of. So I spent a lot of time there, and in my last year, I was a student employee, so I got to be even more involved. And then I was involved in crochet club as well, so kind of feeding my spiritual and creative sides to go along with academics of class.
I think I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was Sigmund Freud or somebody who this was back in college, and who said it's really important to have different pillars to your life. And I've definitely experienced that, like maybe you didn't do as well on a paper as you were hoping to, or on that exam, but man, you just squatted your best in the gym that day, and that's something to celebrate. Like, that's huge, that's big. Or you really belted it out beautifully in that school musical you're in, or you helped somebody in your work study, whatever it is. It's like there's more to you than simply just that grade on a paper, and stuff like that proves it to you time and again. So this is all very, very helpful. Okay. I think I've heard from all of you. Sorry, I'm trying to monitor some questions here. So please feel free to, if you I really want to say something about extracurricular activities and I didn't get a chance to, just chime in. And I don't want to steamroll over anyone, but we do have more questions to get through, and they're really good. Okay, so this is an interesting question. So right now we're talking we talk about your time at Scholastica, but I think there are a lot of questions that are interested in your time now. What are you doing now, and how is what you're doing now, how is that somehow connected to what your experience at CSS? And this question is really about that really kind of can be scary. It's exciting, but also scary moment where you're transitioning out of CSS. So you're graduating, maybe you've just graduated, and the question is, what should I know about what it is like to transition out of St. Scholastica? And that's, I think, a really interesting question, especially because, that could be, you may have a wonderful experience at St. Scholastica and feel like this is a great home for you, and yet you got to leave it eventually. And so the question again is, what should I know about what it is like to transition out of St. Scholastica?
I think for me, right after graduation, I went through kind of a lull period, and I think it's normal. Your identity is a student for 23 years of your life, and then you graduate college, and it's like, now what? So I think just that couple weeks after graduation, well, I also graduated in COVID, so there was some feelings going on there too. But just in general, your identity is student, or student this, student that, or psych major, all relating to school for so long. And then you graduate and you have to find what. But I think the advice I would give is, you have your passions, you have your hobbies, you have your values. Take that with you. You're going to start looking for jobs. It's okay if you don't have a job right away. I nannied for a little bit right after college until I found my first big kid job. But you know who you are. You have other parts of your identity, and you're going to take that with you when you find that first professional job. So it is scary. There could be a period where everything doesn't seem as exciting, or adulting isn't all that you think it might be. There's bills, and not every part of post-graduation life is fun, but stay true to yourself. You know what you want, look for that, and then go achieve it.
Thanks, Meghan.
I feel like for me, since I'm still a student, it's definitely interesting. But was a huge transition for me going from Scholastica, which is very, very small, to the University of Minnesota, which is ginormous. And I'm from a very small town in like middle of nowhere, Minnesota. So that was like the biggest transition. Whereas all my fellow grad students were like, oh my gosh, this is like so small. And I'm like 60 people. Like that was the biggest class I took at Scholastica. And that was anatomy and physiology. And they're like, what? So that was really, really different. But just kind of remembering that your Scholastica family will always be there, even if you don't talk to them every day. Like within the past week, like I think since this email has been sent out to everyone, I've had like 4 or 5 people text me being like, oh my gosh, like you're on the alumni thing. And I was like, yeah, like, woo, whatever. But kind of knowing that family will always be there if you need them, even if you're not reaching out to them regularly.
Thank you, Lindsey. I can remember in my university, intro to biology, 1,200 students. Massive. Yeah. Crazy. Any other thoughts on this question of transitioning?
I'd say when you start your job, it's okay if you don't know as much as you thought you did, or you feel like that you don't know very much. I think that's totally normal. And it's okay to ask a bunch of questions. Look for mentors and people who are going to help you succeed. That's kind of been a theme, and it continues to the workplace. The company wants you to succeed. They don't want to invest in you to flop. So they're there to help you, and they'll get you going and get you on your feet. So don't be afraid to ask and not know as much as you think you should.
Yeah, I guess if college life at first seemed kind of scary, and you're worried that no one was going to care about you and you're all on your own, I think we can have a similar feeling, a misconception when we get a job at a company and we kind of think the same thing all of a sudden, but for most situations that's not the case. They want to help you too. So thank you, Brianna. That's just great.
Yeah, but like Brianna said, that imposter syndrome, that's a real deal in your, well, maybe jobs or whatever job you get, but just keep plugging away and know that, like Brianna said, as I got a mentor my first couple weeks of my public teaching job, and that helped me tremendously. I could ask any question that I wanted, and there would always be an answer there waiting for me. So, but I I'll be truthfully honest. Like I'm graduating Scholastica with another undergrad degree here in May, and so I'm approaching that time where it's what do I do next, you know? And I like to joke with people, you know, um I I was not ready to start adulting yet, so I went back to school, but I think this is what I want to do, and so I'm going to continue going. Yeah, it's going to be scary. Just put your big girl pants or big boy pants on and just plug away. Do what you need to do, and it'll make you ever more happy for it. So
I love that word, adulting.
scary word.
It is a very scary word. It's only recently I've heard it used as a verb, but it's meaningful. So we have one more question here, and then I'm going to just move it to our final question. So in this question, I think a lot of students who are, well, a question like this would be very meaningful. And the question is very simply, what advice do you have for students who are far from home and missing family and friends? That's a big one.
I mean, with technology, you can Zoom, you can FaceTime, you can call. For me, I was 5 hours from home, so not like super far, but decent distance. And just setting a time every week, like every Monday after class, I'd call my mom on my drive home. That was just like a routine for me. But yeah, just making time in your schedule.
Yeah, Zoom is a grandparent's best friends. I know that. Yeah, technology helps.
I don't have any suggestions for you. I was a commuter, so I was only lived 20 minutes away from the college. But like Lindsey said, you know, use that technology to your advantage. It's there. Use it. So, yeah.
Michael, I'm tempted to ask you for advice on how to avoid family, but I'm not going to.
Well, okay. I have a couple ways of doing that.
No. Right. Yeah. With a dad and an uncle at the college. So that's great.
I would say my mom is my best friend. So we had kind of established our own check-in system. So we would have a red, yellow, or green light. And that would be just kind of code words for how our day was. And then we would just make it kind of constant. And like Lindsey said, part of our routine to check in. And then she knew if I had very few red days, but if I did, it would typically be like $5 in my Venmo to go get something at Einstein's, or just her having that idea of how I was doing far away from home, I think helps both of us just kind of know that we still have each other's backs and we're still close. We FaceTimed all the time, things like that. Care packages go both ways. So you can send your family some things too, and that brings you joy and them joy. So just find other ways to keep home with you.
Yeah, you can send all of your St. Scholastica swag to your parents, right? It's like all that stuff you got at orientation. It's like send it home. That is actually, I mean, that's really interesting advice. Like you're right, care packages work both ways, and I love the idea of of having like a code just to quickly let someone know how your day is, because you don't always want to call somebody and get into a conversation, and I think parents can get a little bit frustrated with that, but it's because you're like on the go. But just to be able to just check in is just great. Say, hey, I'm doing okay, or things are going rough right now, so just give me some space. And that's really, really interesting. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
My advice would be to set aside dedicated time to check in with whoever you need to. So you're not doing homework at the same time or in a room with a bunch of other people at the same time, like Tuesday nights. That's for the two of you or your family to get together over this awesome technology and just be together, intentional.
It's kind of like what we were saying at the very beginning about time management, you know. If you don't schedule it, it's not going to happen. And so, relationships are like anything else. You have to work at them, and that means you got to schedule them in. And I think that is just that's such wise advice, Brianna. Thank you. Lindsey, any thoughts on this issue?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I had someone try to come into my room and I was like, no.
I'm on a panel.
I was texting. I was like, please don't come in.
It's just what advice would you have for students who are far from home and far from family and friends?
Just calling, texting, kind of finding a weekend to go home is always the best. But I was like, professors are pretty lenient if you really tell them I'm really struggling. I need to take Friday off so I can go home Thursday. I did that a few times, and you make up the content. It's not too big of a deal. Yeah,
professors are not monsters. And also, sorry, Lindsey, you did chime in before.
That's okay.
About technology. This is where I'm losing track, following stuff and all that stuff. But thank you. But I'm glad I asked you again, because that's a really great insight and point to raise. Well, I think we've reached the end of our panel. And so, but before we go, I just have one last question. And it's an important question, and I think we might have ended off the panel, the recorded session this way too, but I always think it's good to end off panels like this with this question. If you had to, what would be one piece of advice that you would want to give a current CSS student today?
I think I might have said the exact same thing on the recording, but just like be where your feet are. You have 4 fun years of college and they go by way too fast. So just take it all in when you're there and be thankful for the little things. That's super cliche, but it's really true, I swear.
Yep.
I would also, we talked a lot about this in the recorded session, but we haven't mentioned it as much here, but reach out to people. Everyone at St. Scholastica cares about you. Truthfully, they care about you as a human being. They want you to be successful. So every office, student affairs folks, they're all there to support you and love on you while you are away from home. Scholastica should be your home away from home. So they're like your family. They care about you. So reach out if you need it. Use all the resources. They're there for a reason for you. So take advantage of it.
I definitely say, like I said during the last one, love what you do and do what you love, or do what you love and love what you do. Like I said, there are going to be many obstacles, many directions in life, but just make sure that you do what makes you happy. That's my largest advice.
Last time I said cherish your time with your friends living so close to you. And then another thing I would say is get to know the sisters. We're at a pretty unique college where they're there and they're praying for you, and they would love to meet you and get to know you. So if you see them around, say hi, go to mass with them. They love that. They'll make your day.
Thank you, Brianna. And again, just to remind people, there is mass at 4:30 today. If I might have given the wrong time earlier, my apologies if I did. So it's 4:30 today, and that's at the Queen of Peace Chapel. And I can confirm the sisters would love to see anyone and everyone there. I just got a message from Sister Kathleen that the mass is tomorrow at 4:30. My apologies. Okay. If you're there at 4:30 this afternoon, well, it might just be some nice time to sit and quiet and, and meditate. But 4:30 tomorrow for the Feast of St. Scholastica, Queen of Peace Chapel. Just a huge thank you to our panel for sharing your wisdom and your insights. I can tell you it's been meaningful to me, and I'm pretty far from the ingredients, at least personally. Maybe vicariously through my students, I'm pretty close, but I can only imagine how meaningful this has been to CSS students here. And so again, just a real big thank you for taking your time and just sharing your wisdom with us all. And so, well, I want to also thank everyone here who is watching today, and I wish you all a very happy Feast of Saint Scholastica. And just again, reminder, donuts tomorrow at 3 separate locations on campus for those people who are local, and also, of course, the Mass at 4:30 in the Queen of Peace Chapel. So everyone, thank you for your participation. Thank you to all those people behind the scenes who has done this, who's worked really hard on this. And thank you, of course, to the sisters for all their support and their wonderful example, their heritage, all that good stuff, and all the staff who have worked really tirelessly on this. And so on behalf of Mission Integration Advisory Committee, I just want to thank everybody for your participation here, and wish you, those of you who are at the college, wish you a very happy tenure at the college. May you flourish, may you grow. And for those of you who are moving on, and for those of you who have moved on, like some of our panelists here, I wish you all the best for your future. And remember that you've always got a home here at CSS. So thank you, everyone, and bye for now.